Hi, welcome to Building Electrification for Renters, Crafting a Plan and Taking Steps. I'm Linnea Bond with Physicians for Social Responsibility Pennsylvania, and I rent a row home with 4 others in the Callow Hill neighborhood of Philadelphia. Let's start with some humor. I sold my house this week. I got a pretty good price for it, but it made my landlord mad as hell. Our entire society needs to transition away from fossil fuels, use less energy, and electrify renewably. So where do I start on such an enormous challenge, especially if I don't own my own home? There are interventions that need to happen that are easier for homeowners. These include foundational weatherization of areas like roofs and basements, which lose a lot of heat, replacing major gas appliances like gas furnaces and gas water heaters with electric heat pump space heaters and heat pump water heaters. Electric heat pump space heaters and electric heat pump water heaters, and replacing gas stoves with induction or other electric options. Landowners or homeowners can also put solar panels on their roof and can replace their cars more easily if they need to drive with an electric car, which is a challenge if you don't have a port. Although I included some possible solutions that I found as a link on this presentation. But there is still a lot we can do. Climate change is stressful. We often feel like we can do little about it, especially when we have limited funds and limited control. As renters, we can't put heat pump space heaters or water heaters in, or induction stoves, or sometimes even buy an electric car if we need to drive. We might not be able to make certain changes that affect our bills, but there are things that everyone can do and knowledge we can share as our circumstances change over time. There are definitely things that we can do right now, and I will tell you that as someone who lives in a home that is over 100 years old. Today, we're going to talk about 4 areas that we can look at as renters to slow climate change, reduce our own use, and change our energy system. We'll talk about weatherization. This is making changes to your home that make your energy use more efficient. We'll talk about utilities. We'll talk about what we can do outside the home, and we'll talk about activism and advocacy. So let's start with weatherization. Nothing burns cleaner or cheaper than the energy you don't use. The goal of weatherization, as I said, is to make your home as efficient as possible, to close up gaps where, depending on the season, cold air or hot air are getting in and making your heating or cooling less effective, or where you're losing energy somewhere. This is the close the window, are we trying to heat the outside of energy upgrades. So we're going to talk about windows. The Department of Energy estimates that 30% of a home's heating energy is lost through the windows. Doors, even when they're closed, there can be cracks around the doors that are letting heat out. We're going to talk about your hot water heater. It's probably in your basement, stores your hot water. And finally, we're going to talk about you. It may seem obvious, but what are some easy ways to make yourself more comfortable in your home without turning up the heat all over the house? So let's actually start there. In your home, there are a lot of options that you can choose to make your body warmer. You can put on a sweater, you can use long johns and leggings, you can wear socks, and you can wear slippers. I'm wearing all of those right now. Often I even wear a scarf. My favorite that I never knew about growing up and was taught by another roommate is the hot water bottle. If you are hanging out, if you're sitting down, if you are working from home, if you're not moving, basically, you can heat up your water in your hot water heater, put it into a hot water bottle, and this will change your life. It made a huge difference to me. And also, of course, blankets. And even with the hot water bottle, you can actually potentially figure out ways to attach it to your body, even if you're moving around the house. I do that as well with like a small backpack or something. You can also, if you can use your electric heater if you're alone in your house. and you have a huge house like I do, and you're often alone if your roommates are away, turn down your house heat and just warm the room you're in. All right, so let's talk about doors. So this picture is my door. You can see all the way to the outside. It's several millimeters of a gap. This goes all around my door. And obviously this is something that I can and should talk to my landlord about, and we are asking her to solve this problem, but sometimes relationships with landlords are challenging. So I looked at this solution, and I linked this video on weatherizing a door without an inner curve. These are old doors. The inner curve runs around the door. And on newer doors, you can actually weather strip or foam in that spot. Because when you have a door, you want to shut the door and have that foam in between press. So if, for example, you don't want to have it in most doors or older doors. If this is the back of the thick part of the door, you want to have it shut and squeeze that foam in between. But a lot of doors, they only have one spot where there would be squeeze. Otherwise, like at the top of that door, like I have, there's no extra side for me to put foam for it to push against that flat part. There's only here. So I can't, if I attach foam here, it's just gonna end up rubbing against the top of the frame. So that's why this video has a solution where you're adding basically some kind of panel where you'll end up squishing the foam between the door and the panel, as opposed to having it adding something that's gonna go between and rub. But you might need permission from your landlord to do that. Although you can ask your landlord, hey, I know I have an old door. I know it's expensive to fix the door, but this solution will close the gaps around my door. Could you put something like this in? And I attached that video from The Honest Carpenter. And also you want to make sure that if you install that, you shut your door and lock the deadbolt before you mark where to put the nails in, because otherwise you could end up putting it on in such a way where you can't actually shut the door. So as I said, you can also put self-adhesive, weather stripping or foam where the door meets the frame. Make sure you check it multiple times by opening and closing the door and locking it, unlocking it before you leave. So again, you don't do it in such a way where it doesn't, where it ends up like locking you out because you've added too much of a buffer. Another option is to add a curtain that hangs over the doors, down the doors, as I could add, if you're looking at that picture of the top of my door, I could add a curtain above that hangs over the doors. It'll move when the door is open, but if it's long enough, it won't get stuck. And you can weight the bottom if you're worried about it getting caught by sewing a roll of pennies into the roll. So that's actually my next step. If my landlord is unable to add those, add that solution that I point to here, I'm going to add a curtain above to close the top gap. And then for the bottom, add a curtain, or you can add the curtain would be for the top. You could add a draft guard underneath. And they sell really cute versions of that, like the little dog version. But they also, the kind I got, you can just sort of paste it on to the bottom of your door. It's like if there's a sticky part, you just take it off like a sticker and put it on the bottom, and that closes that gap up. All right, let's talk about windows. I found this really intimidating. I have a massive front window in my house, and I was like, man, I don't want to do this. I was putting it off, but it's only intimidating the first time, I promise. You're going to buy a kit, and you're first going to measure your windows to make sure that you buy the right kit. That kit could be from Frost King, has some, 3M has some, and this is a shrink, plastic shrink weather. I'm going to show you the Sorry, should have had this next to me. This is the window insulation shrink kit. It's going to look like this. So when you buy it, make sure you measure your window first. The plastic has to be bigger than the window because you're going to put the plastic on the rim between the window frame and where you would open the window. I have a picture here on the slide. As you can see, I'm not putting it, you can see from that top picture and then that middle picture on the bottom, I'm not putting it on the window itself. I'm putting it out from the window. So you wouldn't be able to open the window anymore. You're going to clean the window frame where you're putting it as you go and check for there are places where there's already air leaking through. Basically, does your hand get cold in anywhere in particular besides the window pane? So my front window is stuck, as you can see from this picture on the bottom left. My front window is stuck, slightly slipping, so there's definitely air leaking through there. And I use tape to seal those places first. There's weatherization tape that's clear, but my windows are so old and need to be replaced, and you can't see them from where I stood or where like you stand on the floor. So I use duct tape with some paper towels plugging the gap underneath. So then you're going to return to putting the tape on. You're going to clean the spot where you're going to put the tape, and you're going to put the tape on the frame and then take the paper off the back, leave it for a few minutes, have a snack, come back and unfold the plastic and attach the plastic to the tape, starting from the top. So you put it on the top, you're going to hold it taut and continue to stick the plastic to the tape down the side and then across the bottom. And if there are wrinkles, it's plastic, so it's going to be really easy to hold it taut. But if there are wrinkles, you can use a hairdryer to warm those areas of the plastic, and that'll smooth out the wrinkles. But don't touch the hairdryer to the plastic or you'll melt it. And afterward, you will probably, if you buy the right kind, you should be able to see out the window just fine. When it's dark and the light is on the inside rather than the outside, I can see the plastic. But during the day, when the light's on the outside shining in, it's really hard to see the plastic. So I took some photos that you can sort of see that it's really difficult to tell that that plastic is on. All right, so your hot water heater. If your hot water heater is warm to the touch, it's losing heat. And you can cover it with an insulating blanket. There are instructions I've linked here from the Department of Energy. You can get one of those blankets online. I haven't tried just using like a regular blanket. I wouldn't recommend it because I didn't see anything about that. But I think that if you wanted to do more research, I think there are probably people who could, who have tried it and can speak to that. But I personally, fortunately, have a hot water heater that's not losing heat. It is losing heat a little bit out of the pipes. So if there's pipes coming out and you touch those and those are hot, you can get insulation for those pipes. So you get those just and cover it up. It looks like a pool noodle. And you can only really do those where it's exposed. Like you can't, obviously open up your walls and put it in there, but I can do it in my own basement up through where it goes into the next floor. Okay, also make sure you change the filter on your furnace every 3 months, but check it once a month in case yours needs to be replaced more often. This is helping your heat run more efficiently. If your filter is dirty, then all the power that's coming out through your furnace is getting caught in that filter on the dust that is in there. So you're running it harder, but it's not actually coming out to you. So make sure you're replacing that filter every 3 months max. Also, insulate your pipes if they are hot to the touch. I mentioned that a moment ago. So now we're going to talk about utilities. You've weatherized. Now you want to make sure whatever you're using is clean energy, is renewable. You have a choice. Your service options, your service is provided to you for Philadelphia, PGW and PECO. PGW is our gas company. PECO is our electric company. But you have a choice what energy they provide to you. They're the distributor, and they will give you their default service unless you choose. So gas, unfortunately, there's not great options because the renewable gas is still methane. That is, it's still contributing to global warming. But we're going to talk about advocacy around gas in a minute. So we're going to look at electric. I looked at 3 of the major energy providers that say they're providing renewable energy, but of these 3, I would actually only recommend Clean Energy Co-op. Why? Let's actually look first at Clean Choice and Green Mountain. Both of these companies have been accused of predatory marketing. And actually, Green Mountain was just made to pay a settlement by the PUC for illegally enrolling customers against their knowledge in 2021. I've heard, but can't confirm, that green energy is a fossil fuel front. Both companies buy credits for renewable energy. The energy you are buying is actually not changing. There can be a sudden price change. That was a critique I saw, especially with Clean Choice, because Green Mountain has some fixed rate plans. Although you need to make sure that what you're signing up for, that you're signing up for the right plan. When I used to use Green Mountain, I had to call a few months in after I signed up and lock in my rate, or else it would continue to go up. So Clean Energy Co-op would be my recommendation if this change is a budgetable priority for you. They provide wind and solar energy, and they provide local wind and solar energy if you choose that plan. They have a 12-month fixed rate plan, and they have no cancellation fee. So you could try it for a little while. Maybe if you were like, I can switch over on a month where I know that I'm not going to be using quite as much electricity or something, you could cancel it after if you felt like, oh, that's not something I can sustain. Renewables are coming down in price, but currently this would be more expensive to buy the default fossil, this plan, going with Clean Energy Co-op would be more expensive to buy than the default fossil fuel service that your energy company provides. But whatever you choose, it's important to compare cost and to know if it's possible for your rate to change and along what timeline and with what notice. All right, so let's talk about outside the home. Let's talk about travel first. Hybrid cars are an alternative for renters who don't have the ability to charge their electric car. But wherever possible, utilize public transportation like buses and trains and subways. Taking the train to a nearby city like DC or New York saves significant emissions from driving or, of course, flying. If you're able to, bike. I bike everywhere in the city, and I can always find parking, and it always helps me keep in shape. Often I beat drivers places when we take different modes. If you do need a car, budget your use of your car. Think about how often you're using it and see if you can do that less. Work. So this is a little bit about advocacy. Most companies operate as business as usual because no one at their company is talking about environmental and climate justice issues. You may not be able to make the changes you'd like to at home, but asking questions at work and starting conversations can have an even more significant impact. If you work in the office, find out information about your building. Just asking questions can make a big difference, can make momentum, because people are not thinking about it. They're just operating as business as usual. But the reality is that every building that we use has to be renewably electrified, has to do this efficiency process where we're using less energy. At home, eat out less and compost at home. Food waste, besides being a tragedy of global inequity, is a major contributor to landfill methane. So eating at home is cheaper. It enables you to have more control over where your food comes from and significantly reduces waste. Overall, see if you can audit your use. Think about the areas of your life where you're using fuel and generating waste, and consider ways you can cut that down. Maybe give yourself a plastic budget and start shopping at the farmer's market. Depending on your baseline, your health is likely to improve. Look at the areas that are easiest for you to find solutions for and where you're spending the most in terms of your personal use. That being said, we are consumers, so we're responsible for our own use, but we're also operating within a system that is much larger than us as individuals. We have enormous power, however, as Pennsylvanians and as Americans. We have enormous power in terms of the global the global economy and the choices that we make. So we can use that power for very specific actions on specific issues to make enormous change. I'm going to use Philadelphia companies as case studies here because I know that there are already ongoing campaigns to transition our energy utilities here in Philly. But if you're in a non-Philly area, you can still have a major impact making your opinions known to your state representatives and city hall members, or city council members, rather. Here in Philadelphia, you're likely to be a PECO customer for your electric energy. And if you have the default service, your energy is 99.9, sorry, it's 0.5 solar. So it's about 7%. The default service is about 7% renewable energy, but within that, they also include biofuels, which are unhealthy for our planet. So we don't actually know if, for example, if PECO's default service is like 6% landfill methane energy. But all that is to say, at least 93% of PECO's default service is fossil fuels and nuclear. It's about 60% fossil fuels and about a third nuclear. PSRPA is working with Power on pushing PECO to transition to providing more renewable energy in their default service. And you can participate in that work by following PSRPA and Power, by plugging in when we send out action alerts, things you can do. You can participate in that work just by joining up with us. Similarly, PSRPA and Power are among other organizations working on the effort to transition Philadelphia's gas company to not providing gas. Unlike PECO, PGW is owned by the city, not private shareholders. So the city gets to tell PGW what to do, and the city council members and mayor answer to the people. The Gas Commission, which is made up of appointees by the mayor and members of city council and the city controller, it's a 5-member commission, is the body that approves things like PGW's budget, and they hold monthly public hearings that Philadelphians can join. So just joining these meetings to make your voice heard, simply attending can make a difference, but commenting when given the opportunity is important as well. And if you stay in touch with PSRPA, we'll make sure you always know what to do at these hearings and you can participate knowledgeably. If you don't live in Philadelphia, find out what your municipality's renewable energy looks like and bother your city leadership about it. You can call your representatives and ask for that information, as your representatives should be able to answer those questions. And they'll notice that people are asking, again, just by asking, just by saying, what is, are you concerned about our utilities default service being, depending on what it is, X amount of fossil fuels, X amount non-renewable energy. What are we doing to improve renewable energy? And just asking those questions can really push your legislators if there's not already an active campaign that's already going on in your area. Like I said, there are in Philadelphia. So that's all I have for you today. Hopefully, by doing some weatherization on your home, you can lower your energy bills and you can have a warmer home in the winter, but use less energy. And hopefully by auditing our use and considering ways that we can cut down our use, and then participating in campaigns with other people around our utilities, we can have both an impact on our own lives and our community, but also we can have this big impact on our city and our townships. So thanks so much for joining me today. And please stay in touch, watch what we're doing, especially if you are in Philadelphia, because we are actively working on those campaigns. But even if you're not in Philadelphia, please get in touch if this is something that you are passionate about, and we can try to connect you with others and see about people working in your area on these issues. Thanks so much.